March 27th, 1999. Over Serbia, NATO launched one of its most daring strikes. Flying alone in the storm, Lieutenant Colonel Daryl Zelko guided his F-117 Nighthawk, America's invisible bomber, toward Belgrade. On the ground, Serbian Commander Zoltan Dani watched a faint dot flicker across his radar. He gave the order. 2 missiles streaked upward, chasing the ghost no one had ever caught. One missed. The other tore through Zelko's wing, sending flames across the night sky. He ejected, his parachute glowing bright orange above enemy lines. Now hunted on the ground, how could he signal rescue without exposing himself to capture? Before we dive into this story, where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. Welcome to Grateful Stories, where tales of compassion and kindness are told. Let's uncover what really happened. Flames ripped across the night. A black triangle spun out of control. Inside the cockpit, a voice screamed over the radio, "They got me!" The image froze. Then the story rewound. Hours earlier, it was March 27th, 1999. Storm clouds rolled over Serbia. Lightning flashed across the countryside. Lieutenant Colonel Daryl Zelko guided his F-117 Nighthawk into the dark. His orders were clear. Strike the Serbian Air Force Command Center in Belgrade. Hit the brain of the enemy, the place coordinating every defense. Success meant crippling their ability to fight back. The Nighthawk cut through the turbulence like a shadow. Its flat black surfaces scattered radar waves. On enemy screens, it looked no bigger than a tennis ball. For years, it had flown without challenge. But Zelko knew tonight was different. He had escorts, F-16 Vipers with missiles primed to kill radars. Together, they could clear a path. Then, a sudden voice crackled in his headset. "This is Joint Forces Air Component Commander. Due to weather, escorts returned to base. Repeat, return to base." Zelko's heart sank. His wingman peeled off, disappearing into the storm. He was now a lone silhouette crossing hostile airspace. A single mistake could mean disaster. "Tonight, it's just me in the dark," he muttered. He steadied his breathing, checked his instruments. Mission clock ticked forward. Each second carried him deeper into danger. Far below, villages slept under sheets of rain. Somewhere in those fields, anti-air batteries waited. He couldn't see them, but they were watching for him. The F-117 was America's crown jewel. Billions poured into stealth research had built this machine. Pilots called it the Ghost Untouchable, invisible, unstoppable. Confidence ran high in Washington, yet in Belgrade, confidence grew on the other side. For weeks, Serbian officers had studied NATO flight paths. They learned patterns. They prepared ambushes. And they had one man determined to prove the ghost could bleed. Lieutenant Colonel Zoltan Dani commanded an SA-3 surface-to-air missile unit. He was calm, calculating, and stubborn. His men had been frustrated, radars swept, but found nothing. Each time, the Nighthawks slipped through like whispers. But on this stormy night, Dani sensed opportunity. Rain and clouds distorted signals, but also forced pilots lower. Lower altitude meant vulnerability. His chance might finally come. "Men, prepare the set," Dani ordered. Technicians crowded around aging screens. A P-18 radar hummed to life, sending out low-frequency waves. It wasn't designed for stealth, but Dani believed it could reveal what others missed. In the cockpit above, Zelko checked his altitude. 6 miles up, engines whispered in the night. The aircraft felt steady. Mission computers aligned the bomb trajectory. He trusted the machine, trusted the billions of dollars behind its design. Still, a knot twisted in his stomach. Enemy territory stretched for miles in every direction. Every minute he was exposed. Every minute increased the odds that someone, somewhere, would spot him on the ground. Dani's radar screens flickered with static. Rain clouds painted false echoes across the scope. To most operators, it looked like chaos, but Dani's eyes narrowed. Among the clutter, a faint dot crawled forward. There, he whispered, a single trace, too steady to be weather. A shadow slipping through the storm. "Keep scanning," an officer muttered. "I see nothing." Danny leaned closer. No. Look again. It's moving against the clouds. That's him. His pulse quickened. The ghost had entered his kill zone. Above the clouds, Zelko pressed on. He thought of his family. He thought of the mission's stakes. Each strike tonight was meant to shorten the war, save lives, end resistance. But he also knew if the enemy brought him down, the world would watch. The symbol of invincibility would be shattered, and he would likely never see home again. Lightning flared in the distance, bathing the sleek jet in white. For a moment, the Nighthawk's outline was visible even to the naked eye. Zelko's grip tightened on the stick. He whispered again to himself, "Stay invisible. Stay alive." The mission timer ticked closer to target, bomb-based systems armed automatically. A light blinked green. Soon, he would release the payload and vanish back into the clouds. But on the ground, the hunt was already underway. "Switch to combat mode," Danny ordered. "Radar frequency low. Sweep again." The P-18 dish rotated slowly, humming under the rain. Operators leaned forward, sweat on their brows. Static crackled across the screens. Then, in the blur of noise, the dot appeared again. "I have something," Danny said. Eyes locked. A faint blip edging toward Belgrade. A shadow in the storm. His men crowded around, still doubtful. It could be weather, could be nothing. Danny shook his head. "No, this one has a pulse. This one has intent." Up above, Zelko felt a chill. Nothing showed on his instruments. Yet some part of him, instinct, experience, whispered danger. He scanned the darkness. He saw only rain, clouds, silence. Still, the thought lingered. What if they were watching? What if tonight? The ghost wasn't invisible on the Serbian field. Danny finally spoke with conviction. "Target confirmed. The ghost is here." His voice cut through the bunker like a blade. "Turn on the targeting radar. Sweep the skies." Screens lit up. Men straightened in their chairs. A storm raged outside, but inside the bunker, hearts pounded harder. The ghost had come, and tonight, they would try to kill it. Inside the bunker, the screens flickered. Rain painted the radar with false echoes. Bright smears appeared, then vanished. Nothing. "Keep it steady. Watch carefully." A young operator's hand hovered above the firing switch. Sweat dripped onto the console. Every second felt heavier. Danny stood behind them, calm but relentless. His eyes never left the low-frequency scope. Among the noise, he saw the faint mark crawling forward. "There," he snapped. "The room froze. It's no storm. That's our ghost." High above, Zelko focused on the target. The bomb computer aligned his coordinates. Green lights pulsed on his console. He flipped the switch. The bomb bay doors groaned open. Metal panels folded outward into the wind. And in that instant, his aircraft betrayed him. The radar cross-section bloomed. The ghost was no longer invisible. Back underground, the Serbian operators gasped. The dot grew clear, sharp against the haze. "Contact, I have it." "Lock on," Danny barked. Another officer echoed. "Phi 1 tracking. Phi 2 tracking." The crosshairs aligned. Danny's voice cut through the room. Launch 2 missiles roared into the sky. The bunker shook as the doors slammed open above them. Flames lit the field like daylight. The rockets streaked upward, carving fire through the storm. Every man in the bunker held his breath. The impossible was now in motion. Zelko heard it before he saw it. A piercing tone screamed in his headset. "Lock warning." His heart jolted. Instinct took over. He shoved the stick hard, breaking left. Then the clouds parted and he saw them. 2 fiery spears cutting through the night. They were coming straight for him. He pulled back, the jet groaning under the strain. Alarms screamed in his cockpit. He had no flares, no chaff, no magic shield. It was only him against physics. And physics was cruel. The first missile streaked past his canopy. A blinding flash. It missed by inches. But the second did not. It detonated beside his wing. A wave of shrapnel tore through the fuselage. Metal shrieked. Flames burst from the left side. The aircraft lurched violently, spinning out of control. Zelko's head slammed against the seat. The horizon tumbled outside his window. The ghost was bleeding fire. Down below, Danny's men erupted in shouts. "We hit it." They leaned over their consoles, eyes wide. Danny clenched his jaw, watching the streaks fade. Through the static, the dot vanished. He knew. The impossible had just happened. Above, chaos ruled the cockpit. Warning lights strobed red. The stick bucked against his grip. The Nighthawk twisted, falling into a flat spin. Each rotation slammed his body sideways. G-forces crushed his chest, 7 times his weight. Zelko gasped for breath. Blood pressed into his skull. His vision narrowed to gray. "Stay with it," he told himself. Hands trembling, he reached down. The ejection handles waited. One chance, one violent escape. He pulled. The canopy blasted free. The seat rocketed upward. Zelko's body snapped back, flames flashing below. For a second, he thought it failed. He felt only falling, spinning through blackness. Then the parachute snapped open. A brutal tug wrenched his shoulders. Orange fabric blossomed above him. He dangled in silence, breathless. Below, his aircraft spun like a comet. A trail of fire slashed the night sky. The Nighthawk disintegrated into the dark. Relief washed over him, then dread. He looked up again. The parachute glowed like a beacon, bright orange against black clouds. Anyone on the ground could see it. He muttered under his breath, half in disbelief. Mom's not going to be happy about this. Far beneath him, the land stirred awake. Trucks screeched to a halt on muddy roads. Doors slammed. Voices shouted in Serbian. Searchlights cut through the rain. They swept over fields, barns, empty ditches. They swung closer to the falling pilot. Zelko gripped his harness. The ground rushed up to meet him. He had survived the missiles, but the hunt was far from over. The parachute dragged him hard into the earth. Zelko hit the ground, rolled across wet soil, and slid into a shallow ditch. Pain flared in his ribs, but he forced himself to move. He unclipped the harness, shoved the glowing chute aside. The bright fabric was a beacon one glance, and he would be finished. Mud splashed as he pressed his body flat, crawling deeper into the shadows. His fingers dug into the dirt. Cold water seeped through his gloves. He smeared thick mud across his face and uniform, breaking his outline against the ground. Engines roared on a nearby road. Truck tires hissed over puddles. Doors slammed and voices barked in Serbian. Flashlights stabbed through the rain. White beams swept back and forth, searching every bush, every hollow. Somewhere close, a dog barked, its howl cutting through the storm. He lay still, heart hammering in his chest. Every breath felt too loud, too sharp. He pressed his cheek against the mud, praying it muffled the sound. Branches rustled. Footsteps squelched closer. Then came panting, wet, rapid, animal. The dog pushed into the ditch, snout twitching. Its nose hovered inches from Zelko's arm. Saliva dripped onto his sleeve. His hand moved slowly toward the survival knife strapped to his chest. He curled his fingers around the handle. One quick strike could silence the animal. But his mind raced. If the dog yelped, if its master heard he was finished, killing it might only hasten discovery. He froze, knife trembling in his grip. Seconds crawled by. The animal sniffed again, then jerked its head. With a sudden leap, the dog bounded away. Leaves shook. The sound faded. Zelko exhaled slowly, every muscle shaking. Special operations survival was never about strength alone. It was patience, instinct, and knowing when not to act. He had learned that years ago, and tonight it saved him. Still, the mental toll was brutal. Fear chewed through his focus. It was a fight not only for his body but for his mind. The radio crackled at his side. Static hissed. Then a clear voice. Mayday. Mayday. Vega. 31, he whispered. The call left his lips in gasps. He repeated it, steadying his tone. Vega 31 going down. Position north of Belgrade. A pause, then a reply. Calm and firm. Magic copies your Mayday. We read you. Vega 31. Relief surged through him. He wasn't alone anymore. Help was coming. But he looked down at himself. The mud hid his body. Yes, but the orange parachute had already betrayed his position. On the road, more trucks arrived. Soldiers spilled out, rifles in hand. Civilians followed with lanterns, eager for a glimpse of the fallen ghost. Flashlights swept dangerously close. One beam skimmed across his ditch. He pressed himself deeper into the muck, holding his breath. Rain pounded his helmet. Thunder shook the air. Still, the search tightened around him. Vega 31 standby, the radio whispered. Rescue inbound. HH-60 en route. ETA minutes. Minutes felt like years. He could hear the enemy everywhere now. Boots on gravel. Dogs barking again. His muscles ached from stillness. He dared not move. Every instinct screamed to run, but training chained him in place. Finally, a new sound pierced the storm. Deep, rhythmic, mechanical. Rotors. The thump of helicopter blades grew louder. Rescue was near, but so was danger. Vega 31, mark your position. A voice called. If safe, signal now. Zelko looked around desperately. The infrared strobe on his vest flickered, then failed. Useless. Invisible to his rescuers. His last option lay in the flare tube strapped to his side. It was crude, bright, obvious. Lighting it meant every Serbian soldier would see him. He weighed the risk. If he did nothing, the helicopter might pass him by. If he revealed himself, the enemy would converge. The blades drew closer. Time was gone. He yanked the flare free, twisted the cap, and struck it alive. Light exploded in the rain. A red blaze hissed against the dark. The whole field lit up like fire. Instantly, shouts erupted nearby. Over there, flashlights snapped toward him, converging on the flare. Zelko's heart pounded in his throat. He waved the burning stick overhead, screaming inside his helmet. See me, please see me. The helicopter thundered closer. Its searchlight swept wide arcs through the clouds. The flare's glow reflected against the falling rain. Contact. Visual on survivor. The radio barked. We've got him. But another voice warned. Sharp. Snuff your flare. It blinds our night vision. Zelko's mind raced. Enemy patrols were rushing toward the blaze. Every second counted. He slammed the flare into the mud, smothering it. The fire sizzled out, leaving smoke and glowing embers. Darkness swallowed him again. Above, rotor wash whipped the trees. The rescue bird hovered close. A spotlight pierced the ditch where Zelko hid. He squinted, eyes wide, body trembling. Help was finally here, but the enemy was closing fast. Boots, voices, shouts echoing all around. He had survived the missiles. He had evaded the search. Now, survival came down to seconds. The hunter's net was tightening. The night was almost over, and the battlefield narrowed to one desperate landing zone. The helicopter thundered low over the fields. Its searchlight carved a white tunnel through the storm. Wind from the rotors ripped across the grass. Zelko shielded his eyes. Two silhouettes leapt from the side door. American rescue specialists sprinted toward him. Sir, we've got you, one shouted. They grabbed his harness, yanking him to his feet. Mud clung to his boots as they dragged him forward. Behind them, voices roared in Serbian. Flashlights bounced through the trees. Gunfire cracked, sharp bursts echoing across the fields. Move, a rescuer barked. Rounds smacked into the ground, spraying mud. But the team pushed on, pulling Zelko toward the waiting bird. They reached the skid. Hands shoved him up into the cabin. One rescuer climbed in after him. the other covering their flank. The helicopter lurched upward. Tracer rounds streaked past the fuselage. The crew chief slammed the door shut with his boot. Engines screamed. The HH-60 Blackhawk clawed for altitude. Below, Serbian soldiers flooded the landing zone. Too late to stop them. Zelko collapsed against the cabin wall. Adrenaline drained from his body. For the first time that night, he exhaled in relief. The escape was measured in seconds. One flare, one spotlight, one desperate dash, a razor-thin margin between capture and freedom. Tactically, it was proof of discipline and coordination. American rescue forces had trained for this scenario for years. They executed with precision under fire, but the larger lesson lay on the ground below. The Serbians had accomplished the unthinkable. They had brought down a stealth fighter. For NATO commanders, it was a shockwave. Until that night, the F-117 carried an aura of invincibility. Billions had been spent to make it invisible. Yet Zoltan Dani's unit showed that patience could pierce the veil. They used outdated radar, adapted it, and exploited weather. Their improvisation broke through American confidence. It was not brute force that claimed the kill. It was creativity, discipline, and the willingness to wait for one mistake. And on that night, the mistake came when the bomb bay doors opened. For Zelko, survival was about mindset. He had been trained to resist panic, to obey instinct without hesitation. Even when spinning at 7 Gs, he trusted the drill. On the ground, he fought a different enemy fear. Every breath in the ditch tested his resolve. Every decision carried life or death consequences. What saved him was patience. The choice not to strike the dog. The choice to hold still when light swept close. That discipline turned survival from chance into certainty. He lived because he mastered himself, not because of any machine. Technology had limits. The Nighthawk was a marvel of design, but not immortal. Stealth reduced the odds of detection, but it did not erase them. Low-frequency radar, clever positioning, and human persistence cracked the code. It proved no weapon was beyond defeat, and it reminded both sides that war was never predictable. The wreckage of Vega 31 became proof. Serbian soldiers scavenged the remains. Pieces were displayed in Belgrade, symbols of defiance. Strategically, the downing echoed worldwide. The myth of perfect stealth was broken. Military analysts in Moscow, Beijing, and beyond studied every detail. For Washington, it was a sobering reality. American air dominance could be challenged. Every mission carried new risk. And yet, NATO's campaign continued. The strike still hit its target. Belgrade felt the impact despite the loss of the jet. But the psychological victory belonged to Serbia. For one night, they had humbled the world's most advanced machine. Years later, the story gained a human twist. In 2011, Daryl Zelko finally met Zoltan Dani. The pilot and the commander shook hands in peace. They sat together, men who had once fought across fire and sky. No anger, no bitterness. Only respect born of shared history. Zelko thanked him for fighting with skill and honor. Dani thanked him for surviving, so the story could be told. Two soldiers, once enemies, now shared coffee like old comrades. The legacy of that night remains, a lesson written in flame and rain over the Balkans, that no technology is untouchable. Tactics evolve, machines fail, but the human mind calm, clever, relentless decides the outcome. Zelko's ordeal showed the power of discipline under chaos. Dani's triumph showed the strength of adaptation under pressure. Together, they carved a moment history will never forget. In the end, it was not just about a jet, it was about two men, two sides, and the choices they made. One chose to survive, one chose to hunt. The machine burned, but both men endured, and that endurance became their bond. From the stormy skies of 1999 came a simple truth. No system is flawless. No warrior is invincible. Victory belongs to those who think, adapt, and refuse to yield. It belongs to human spirit, not steel. And that is the real story of the night a Nighthawk was shot down.